For everyone's awareness, we are now starting the live stream.
Good morning, everyone. Madam Warden, I believe that we do have all the clerks in attendance who will be able to verify quorum through roll call just after the meeting begins when you call on them. So whenever you're ready, I believe we are good to go.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone, and I would like to call to order this special joint meeting of April 17th, 2025, and thank you all for making the opportunity to be able to attend in your busy schedules on short notice so that we can come together for education purposes. At this point in time, I would like to look to the clerks of each municipality, and I'll call on each clerk individually to confirm the council member attendance from that member municipality. We'll begin with the Township of Chatsworth. I'll look to Patty Cinnamon.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Warden. We have Mayor Scott Mackey in attendance, Deputy Mayor Terry McKay, Councillor Liz Thompson, and Councillor Peter Whitten. So we do have quorum.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to the Township of Georgian Bluffs, and I'll look to Carly Craig.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Warden. From the Township of Georgian Bluffs Council, Mayor Sue Carlton, Councillor Tobin Day, and Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn are in attendance. In council chambers and for attendance purposes, staff for the Township of Georgian Bluffs are Samantha Buchanan, Treasurer, Brittany Drury, Deputy CAO, Director of Corporate Services, and myself, Carly Craig, Clerk.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to Amanda Van Alstyne for the municipality of the Grey Highlands.
Good morning. Through you, Warden Matrosovs, I can confirm that all Grey Highlands councillors are in attendance with the exception of Mayor McQueen.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And to the town of Hanover, Vicky McDonald.
Through you, your worship, in attendance, Hanover has Mayor Sue Patterson, Deputy Mayor Warren Dickert, Councilor Susan Sackle, and the balance of council is absent. We do not have quorum of our council.
Okay, thank you very much. And next we'll move on to the municipality of Meaford and Margaret Wilton Siegel.
Good morning and thank you, Madam Warden. Confirming we have all members of council with the exception of Councillor Bell and Councillor Bartley.
Okay, thank you. And the city of Owen Sound, Brianna Bloomfield.
Thank you, Warden. All members of Owen Sound Council are present except for Mayor Boddy and Councillor Middleborough.
Okay, thank you very much. And then I'll look to Holly Melnick for the Township of Southgate.
Good morning. Through you, Madam Warden, we presently have Mayor Brian Milne, Deputy Mayor Barbara Breen, Councillor Joan John, and Councillor Jim Ferguson in attendance.
Thank you. And for the town of Blue Mountains, I'll look to Karina Giles.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I confirm that in the Blue Mountains, we have all members of council present with the exception of the Deputy Mayor, Peter Bourdignon. Thank you.
Thank you. And the municipality of West Grey, I'll look to Jamie Ekins-Willer.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And through you, West Grey has all members of council present with the exception of Councillor Joyce Noon. And I will just note that Councillor Doug Townsend is in attendance and has confirmed that he can hear and see everything, although his name is not showing in the attendee list.
Okay, thank you very much. So, Madam Clerk, that looks like we've heard from all of our member municipalities. So we'll proceed with the land acknowledgement. As I am attending a conference here in Ottawa, I would like to begin by acknowledging that Ottawa is built on the unceded Anishinaabe Algonquin territory. The peoples of the Anishinaabe Algonquin Nation have lived on this territory here for millennia. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continued to nurture this land. I'd now like to look on Clerk Warder to lead us in the land acknowledgement for Grey County.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Let us begin by respectfully acknowledging that we are gathering on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe Nation, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Ottawa, and Potawatomi nations. And further, we give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, known collectively as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, the traditional keepers of these lands and waters since time immemorial. To our south lies the traditional territories of the Six Nations of the Grand River. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and friendship with all First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 4, which is a declaration of interest. I'll ask for any members that are present to raise their virtual hand if they have a declaration of interest. Okay, seeing no hands go up, then we'll proceed on to the adoption of the agenda and procedures. And I'll just look to my notes here. So Grey County will maintain all records of this meeting. The assembly today is one large body and a quorum is 50% plus 1 of all elected officials across Grey County. Any votes taken today will be determined by a simple majority vote. The next is to look for a mover and a seconder. That the recommendation is that the special Grey County joint all council meeting adopts the content of the agenda as presented and Grey County procedural bylaw 513422 to govern the procedure of its April 17th, 2025 joint meeting of the County of Grey and the municipalities of the town of the Blue Mountains, the city of Owen Sound, the township of Georgian Bluffs, the municipality of Meaford, the township of Chatsworth, municipality of Grey Highlands, the town of Hanover, the municipality of West Grey, and the township of Southgate, and that a quorum shall be determined by 50% plus 1 of all elected officials across Grey County, and that votes taken to be determined by a simple majority vote. May I ask for a mover and a seconder? I see Councillor Eccles is moving and Councillor Hutchins, sorry. I see Kevin Eccles moving and yes, there it is. And Tom Hutchinson from West Grey is seconding. So it's now on the floor. Are there any opposed? We'll do this vote again as we've done before. I will, because of the nature of the number of individuals that we have here voting, I will simply at each of our votes ask if there are any opposed. So I'll put out the question, are there any opposed? Seeing no virtual hands, Madam Clerk, I'll declare that as passed.
Thank you.
And next, as we move along into the agenda, I would like to take a moment to introduce the special guests that we have here in attendance to guide us through the education of today's session. And I would like to welcome John Mascarin, who is a senior partner of Airden Berlis, LLP in Toronto. He is a certified specialist by the Law Society of Ontario in municipal law, local government, and land use planning and development, and a longstanding adjunct professor at Osgoode Hall Law School. John is also the editor-in-chief of 2 national law reports and a monthly newsletter in the municipal law, and co-author of 6 published books, including leading texts on the Ontario Municipal Act. So welcome, Mr. Mascarin. And also I put out a welcome to Jeffrey Abrams of Principles Integrity, and who will need no introduction to any of the member municipalities here, as we all use Principles Integrity for our Integrity Commissioner. So welcome to you as well, Mr. Abrams, to be available for questions from our council members. Thank you very much, both. So with that, I'll move on to item 6. The recommendation is that the Special County of Grey Joint All Council does now go into closed session pursuant to Section 239, 3.1 of the Municipal Act 2001, as amended, to hold a meeting for the purpose of education or training of training the members on strong mayor powers. First, I'll ask if there's a mover and a seconder. Thank you. I see it. I'll take it moved by Warren Dickert and seconded by Brian Milne. So it's now on the floor for discussion. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing no hands go up for discussion, I will then ask.
Madam Warden, we have a question here from the Blue Mountains. Councillor Hope is putting her hand up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm just looking to the virtual hands. So Madam Clerk, I'm not Madam Clerk of the Blue Mountains, I'm not seeing your hand, but I'll take that in a moment. But I do see the City of Owen Sound has put up a hand. Okay, there we go. Thank you. So I'm going to begin with the first hand up, which is the City of Owen Sound.
To you, Warden. Deputy Mayor Gregg has some comments.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. And I'd just like to put it on the record, I'm not convinced that this meeting should be held and closed. So I will be voting in opposition to the closed motion on the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And the next hand that I see on the screen here is we'll go to Paula Hope of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I would like to join my voice with my colleague from the City of Owen Sound. I see no reason why this session should be in closed session. I will not be voting in favor of the motion. I think the public should have access to this information. And if there are any concerns that any of my colleagues in Grey County have about asking questions that may not be seen as friendly to some members of the public as others, we could have organized a way of having questions being put forward quietly and without names, and they could be read out to the speakers. So I find this unfortunate, and I will not be voting in favor of going into closed session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to June Porter of the Blue Mountains.
Yes, and thank you. And through you, Madam Mayor, you're well aware from a previous email that I am strongly opposed to this. I don't understand the need for a closed meeting. This was advertised to the public. The public are aware. The public are equally concerned about what strong mayor powers are. The legislation is public. It's been in popular press for some time now. I will not be voting in favor of this motion either, because I feel the public have a right to be educated as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next on my list, I see Kathy Moore of Georgian Bluffs.
Thank you, Chair. I would add my voice to the previous comments. I don't know that I have any more to add, but for the sake of transparency, I also feel that this meeting should have been held in open session, and I too will be opposing the motion.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll go to Gail Ardell of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and I will add my voice as well. I understand training and education is allowed in closed sessions, but because this has been made so public throughout the province, and the words from AMO and all the other associations is it should be open and transparent. So I will not be voting in favor as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And next I'll go to Alex Maxwell of the Blue Mountains.
I will echo the same response as most of the other people have been saying here, that it should have been in the public, and I will be voting against closed session. Thank you.
Okay, and next I'll return to the City of Owen Sound. I'm going to assume that will be a different individual, and I'll just ask other members who have already spoken to please remove your virtual hand. We'll go to the City of Owen Sound.
Thank you, Warden. We have comments from Councillor Farmer.
Okay, thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you. Through the chair, I share similar concerns, but a question to the clerk. Is there a way for us to still have this conversation, given that we're all here virtually at this time, without that being in closed session, or would that change need to be made with appropriate publication of the intention days in advance?
Okay, so Madam Clerk, I'm going to look to you. At the moment, we have a motion that's been moved and seconded on the floor. We are in discussion. We will hold a vote on that motion. Should that motion pass, we'll follow the direction of that motion. Should that motion fail, then I'll look to the clerk. So, Madam Clerk Warder, do you have anything to add to the question from the Councillor of City of Owen Sound?
I think I would just add that from my perspective, the appropriate notice has been given that this meeting was taking place for educational sessions and on strong mayor power. So I don't foresee a need to plan a separate notice going forward.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just give a moment to welcome any other hands up. Okay, I will go to Councillor Eccles. I'll go to Kevin Eccles of West Grey.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And I will be voting in favor of going into closed session for the simple fact that, yes, I think what we'll be giving back out is a report on this to the public of what it means. But today we're receiving education and whatnot, but it's on, my thoughts are when we head in, it's going to be on legal opinions and whatnot. On this and what actions we may be taken from legal aspect. For that reason, I'm very much in favor of starting a closed session. Once we get there, we can come out of closed session at any time if it's not required. But anyways, my thoughts, and I will be voting to go into closed session.
Okay, thank you. I'll look to the clerk at this point in time, who I see has raised her hand.
Thank you. And I just would like to provide, if I could, some background or context for why this recommendation is appearing on your agenda to go into closed session here today. So the Municipal Act does allow and the Municipal Act does state the reasons that a municipal council can hold a closed meeting. And one of those reasons is so that councillors can receive education and training as long as that discussion does not advance any business of the municipality. So the purpose for holding education and training in closed session is really to provide municipal councils with that effective forum to receive and consume educational information. I think generally councils will find themselves in a closed session for the more typical reasons that you find in the Municipal Act, and the focus and the understanding is that the information itself needs to be kept confidential and be protected. The education and training session exemption is a little bit different in that there may not be necessarily anything inherently confidential about the information itself that's being shared, but it's the forum and the environment in which you're receiving it that is able to be held enclosed. So I would just like to provide a little clarification that the purpose of this meeting in closed session today is not to advance any business of the municipality that would not permit us to hold a closed meeting for education and training purposes. It is strictly for education information of councillors and the ability to have that in a closed meeting, should you wish.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk, for that clarification. And next I see on the list, I'll go to Ross Kentner of Meaford.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And I would just like to say that I've been very encouraged by the pushback from the press and the public and some councillors about this. I understand fully, why it's a great idea, and I feel for the lawyer who's going to be educating us, but democracy is not doing well these days. We're all of us, I think, below 50% in terms of turnout to the polls in municipal elections. And we see what's happening, in our near neighbors area. So I think there's a lot of reasons why we should take a chance here and actually give the public a chance to know. I honestly feel that all the education sessions that I've been in as a councillor could have benefited the public. So I am in favor of having an open session and giving people a chance to know that we're not up to anything silly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I have seen a hand come up and down, but the next one that I see up at the moment, I'll go to Robert Uhrig.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question would be to the legal counsel that actually would be making the presentation. There's been a lot of good discussion about whether this should be open or closed. And I'm wondering, in their estimation, is there anything from their perspective that would substantiate the need for this to be closed? I don't know whether they've done this before or whether they have experience in presenting this kind of forum before and what comes up. They might be able to give us an opinion as to why they think it should be closed or open. Thank you.
Okay, well, I can confirm that the arrangements have been made with both our Integrities Commissioner, Jeffrey Abrams, as well as John Mascaron, that this session is proposed to be enclosed. So that was by the invitation. I'll look to the clerk warder who has made the arrangements for confirmation. Clerk Warder, I'll leave it
I'm
to you.
sorry,
Yeah.
Madam Warden, could you repeat the question? I was just
So the question that came is could the lawyer who is present, Mr. Mascaron, as well as our Integrity Commissioner, Jeffrey Abrams, who have been invited to attend this session and are aware that it is proposed that we go into closed session. So the question is their opinion that comes from our legal guests that are here representing us today in terms of going into closed session?
okay.
And
Thank
I
you.
look to you who made the arrangements.
My apologies. Thank you. It was set up by staff and arranged with the intention to recommend that the session be held in closed. Mr. Mascaron is aware that was the intention. I would look to him to see if he would like to provide any additional comments in that regard.
Okay, thank you. So with that then, as we have acknowledged that we do have Mr. Mascaron here present, ready to go into the presentation, I will look to you now, Mr. Mascaron, if you would like to add any additional comments.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I was asked about this question by staff. They said, what would you prefer to do? And I said, I'm in council's hands. The persons who have spoken against going in closed have done so on a very reasoned and principled basis. So if council or the membership today would believe that it would be appropriate to go and close, then it's a policy decision that you're making that you're entitled to make. You are allowed to go into closed for education and training purposes. And just to be very clear, while I am a lawyer and while I am training you, I am not providing you with specific legal advice today on the implementation of the act, because that would be inappropriate in a closed session, because the only thing that you can do in an education and training session under 239 3.1 of the Municipal Act is training and education purposes only. And I think your your clerk today has stressed the point that it can't significantly advance any business of the municipality. Madam Warden, I'm indifferent, to be honest, as to what council chooses to do. I can go in camera and I can do this in an open session. And again, I will echo the sentiments that have been expressed thus far, that there may be a very good educational purpose to this for the public to hear. And I certainly would not stand in the way to say, no, you should be doing it in a closed session. By the way, and I'll just add, my firm is also the closed meeting investigator for Grey County.
Okay, thank you very much. I will just take a moment then to look to Mr. Abrams of Principals Integrity if he would like to add anything.
Thank you, Warden. I can't disagree that it's entirely in this joint council's hands to decide whether it wishes to meet in open or closed. My advice is really from a more pragmatic perspective, though, having delivered a number of training sessions to municipal councils and in our role as integrity commissioner. The quality of training is, in our view, much better if it is in a closed session. And the reason for that is it frees up members to ask questions, to be organic. The phrase we often use is that a session like this is more like a seminar or a classroom than it is a council meeting. And is there a room for public-facing education on something, on a topic as important as this? Of course there is. But this is the first occasion for you to come together under the proposed implementation of stronger mayor powers in Grey County. I think it would be fair for members to have the opportunity to listen intently, to question, to work with the material by stating their perspectives on it. All of that is appropriate in the course of an education and training session. The record of today's meeting would be public if somebody were to ask for it. Not that there's I don't think there's a lot of material associated with the meeting, but education and training sessions are a little bit different from all of the other closed session meetings that a council might undertake because of that little feature. So yes, it is your choice to do this. My recommendation would be to continue or to move into closed session, to have a debate and make a decision as to whether or not there should be some other opportunity for making the concerns that might flow out of the adoption of stronger mayor powers available to the public for consumption. And each individual council, I presume, is going to do something of that nature.
Thank you. And just before I go to the City of Owen Sound, on that last note, I'll just look to the clerk again. Madam Clerk, after this meeting, whether it be in closed or in open session, then what would be the next step in terms of the member municipalities and the clerks? What would be, what could we expect after this meeting in terms of the information and what happens with the lower tier municipalities?
Sure. And following this meeting, the purpose is really to provide that high level overview and background about the strong mayor powers. Following this meeting, each municipality is likely to have their own conversations about how that will affect their own local tables. I understand that the staff in each local municipality will be bringing forward staff reports and information on the strong mayor powers, and that will be more applicable directly to each respective municipality.
Okay, thank you for that. And I'll look to the City of Owen Sound.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Merton has some comments.
Through you, Madam Warden. Obviously, the conversation around the table is the difference between could and should. We realize we could go into close. We have that under our Municipal Act. The real question is, should we? Based on that, I'm requesting a recorded vote.
Okay, Madam Clerk, you heard the request for a recorded vote.
Noted, thank you. I just would like to confirm and give the clerks an awareness and a heads up. The perhaps the easiest way to do that is that we will have to move through each municipal clerk and who can indicate from their perspectives who is voting in what way. And then just noting as well that the vote cannot be weighted as if it were in county council. This is a single vote per member.
Right. Okay. So, Madam Clerk, then I'll just ask then, because it's not it's not a calculated weighted vote, it's just a simple majority then. Just given to facilitate the clerks in each and every place, not all clerks are in person with each member. Some members are participating virtually from other locations. So, would it be a nice, clear procedure if we went ahead and we raised hands for in favor and we raised hands for opposed, and we took a recorded vote based on the participants? I just want to make sure that I'm just because not every clerk is in a chamber with council members.
Sure.
So
yes, we could do that.
Okay. All right. So then I guess then when we would get to, so I'll just ask then, are there any members that are participating through their council chambers that do not have access to their own login that was sent around to be invited as a panelist, who are unable to raise a virtual hand themselves?
I would just like to confirm with the City of Owen Sound that each member has the ability to do that. Is that correct, Brianna?
Not virtually, they can't. It'll have to be through me in council chambers.
Okay. So with the exception of Owen Sound, and are there any, I'll put the question to any other clerks if they could voice if there is any member who does not have access to using their own virtual hands. And we'll look to Georgian Bluffs. So I see the hand up for Georgian Bluffs. So are you confirming that you have council members who do not have access, have not logged in individually?
Thank you, Madam Warden. Yes, through you, I do have 2 members of council in chambers who are not logged in virtually. So I will be indicating their votes.
Right. Okay. And then I'll go to Karina Giles of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I just wanted to confirm we have council members that are in the council chamber that have chosen to participate from here in the council chamber, but they have joined virtually and do have the ability to vote. I just wanted to make that clarification. And we do have 1 member that is participating virtually.
Okay, thank you. And therefore, I think don't see any further hands go up from clerks. So, Madam Clerk Warder, are you comfortable? Do you need any further questions in terms of when we do get to the vote to make sure that we're recording it in a clear but also organized fashion?
Yes, if I apologize. I have a spreadsheet set up to do votes and record them as they are done by municipality, but I would just need a couple moments to get set up to move through, just given the number of attendees that we have, to do that effectively. If I could just pause for a couple minutes and confer with my deputy clerk.
Okay, thank you. So we'll allow you a few moments to do that. While the clerk is working on that, I had seen a hand up, but the hand has dropped. There we go. I'll go to Dane Nielsen of Grey Highlands.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was just hoping we can call the question, seeing as it's 9:30, we haven't even started the training. So I'm just hoping we can move forward. Open or closed, let's just move forward.
Okay, thank you. And we will call the question as soon as we get confirmation from Clerk Warder that she is ready to adhere to the request for a recorded vote. Okay, and while we're waiting for the clerk, I'll go to Barbara DeBreen of Southgate.
Thank you. Good morning, Warden and councils. I have a question with regard to the publication of this meeting. If the resolution fails and we stay open, were the press or the public granted, is there anyone on this call currently that would be watching the meeting as it is open and then put into a waiting room if it goes into closed? I'm not sure if I'm asking that question correctly, but to the clerk's comment that it was published, it was advertised, so notice was given. But if everyone assumed it was going into closed and now it's open, they would not be present, although it would be recorded and they would be able to share. They would be able to view it after the fact. Just a question.
Okay, so we can put that question, and I don't know if our technology may wish to confirm the availability of this session as it is currently in open session, as we are currently in open session. And also recognizing the fact that in every agenda, it is always very clear that we vote about whether or not we go into closed session. So that is always the question, right? It's never the assumption that we're going into closed session. I'll go to CEO Wingrove. Oh, you're on mute.
Good morning, and thank you, Madam Warden. Just to confirm, as Grey County is hosting this meeting, this session is being live streamed on YouTube. The county's live stream channel is consistent. It doesn't change from one meeting to the next. So anyone from the public who had an interest in this meeting is able to follow the live stream now, and that would continue.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and we'll just look to Clerk Warder if she is set up for the recorded vote.
I believe we are okay to proceed. Thank you for that indulgence. Just to confirm, this is the motion to proceed in camera for the purposes of training and education.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, before I call the vote then, I'm just going to confirm. I'm going to call the vote. I'm going to ask all those in favor to use their virtual hand. Then I'm going to ask all those opposed to use their virtual hand. And then I'm going to look to the City of Owen Sound and the City of Georgian Bluffs to confirm. Is that the procedure that you're recommending?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay. All right, then. Okay,
And
so.
sorry, I apologize. I just saw Councillor Mackey had his hand up.
Yes, and then it went down. So I don't know if a question was answered.
Just trying to prematurely vote, Madam Warden.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. So that is the way that we'll do, so that every member is heard and that the votes are recorded in a fashion that Clerk Warder can make that recording. So I'm going to call the vote then, as it's been asked that we call the vote. I'm going to ask for all those in favor to use your virtual hand. And then I'm going to give the clerk a moment to make sure that she's recorded all of those.
Thank you. We still have some appearing. And they're still coming in.
Okay, and because when they get added, it does change the order of the list. I'm going to ask, please, if everyone can please use your virtual hand if you're voting in favor at this point in time.
Okay, we appear to have that stabilized. So just going through the list, all in favor would be Councillor Eccles from West Grey, Councillor Dickert from Hanover, Councillor Keaveney from Meaford, Councillor McKinley from the Blue Mountains, Councillor Hutchinson from West Grey, Councillor Milne from Southgate, Councillor Patterson from Hanover, Councillor Doug Townsend from West Grey, Councillor Nielsen from Grey Highlands, Councillor Uhrig from Meaford, Councillor Allen, and sorry, that is Councillor Allen from Grey Highlands, Councillor Doug Hutchinson from West Grey, Councillor Peter Whitten from Chatsworth, Councillor Dobreen from Southgate, Councillor Allwood from Grey Highlands, Elizabeth Thompson from Chatsworth, Scott Forrester from West Grey, Councillor Joan John from Southgate, Councillor Scott Mackey from Chatsworth, Councillor Sackle from Hanover. Okay, just confer with my Deputy Clerk. Rayburn, you have recorded all of those members.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so then I'll look to the City of Owen Sound for votes in favor.
Through you, Warden. I'm just looking to the room. No one has their hand raised.
Okay, and then I'll look to Georgian Bluffs.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Apologies, I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties with my mute and unmute. From the Township of Georgian Bluffs, Mayor Sue Carleton is in favor.
Okay, thank you. So so now I'll ask everyone to please remove your virtual hands. Okay, so.
And Madam Warden, if I could, sorry, just interject, the spreadsheet we have a spreadsheet here and it has recorded and added up everything. So I'll just note that majority is 23 based on the number attending here today. And that vote came in as 21 in favor. So we did not receive a majority.
Okay, so let me just finish conducting then the vote. So I will then put the vote then. Now, could everyone please raise their hand if you are opposed to the motion? And we'll give everybody a moment to get their hands up. Okay. And Madam Clerk, when the list is stabilized, then I'll ask you to go through and individual by individual before I go to the City of Owen Sound and Georgian Bluffs.
Thank you. Okay, and I see that that has also stabilized at this time. So all opposed are Councillor Joel Loghead from the Grey Highlands, Councillor Ardell from the Blue Mountains, Councillor Hope from the Blue Mountains, Councillor Jim Ferguson from Southgate, Councillor Moore Coburn from Georgian Bluffs, Councillor Kentner from Meaford, Councillor McKay from Chatsworth, Councillor Shea from West Grey, Councillor Dubik from Grey Highlands, Councillor Wickens from Grey Highlands, Councillor Forder from Meaford, Councillor Porter from the Blue Mountains, Councillor Dodd from the City of Owen Sound, Councillor Greenfield from Meaford, Councillor Maxwell from the Blue Mountains.
Okay, thank you. And now I'll look to the City of Owen Sound.
To your Warden, as noted by Clerk Warder, Travis Dodd has voted opposed. And then in the room, we've got Councillor Farmer opposed, Councillor Hanley opposed, Councillor Kepke, Councillor Kukrasia, Councillor Merton, and Deputy Mayor Scott Gregg.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll look to Georgian Bluffs.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Through you, in Township of Georgian Bluffs Council Chambers, Councillor Tobin Day is opposed.
Okay. Okay, so then, Madam Clerk, I'll just wait for your tally on that.
Thank you. So we have 22 voting in opposition and 21 voting in favor. So that motion to move in close was lost.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that then, we're able to move on to the training portion of this session. So I'll invite, sorry, if everyone could please lower your hands. And I will invite Mr. Mascarin. I'm going to invite you to begin our presentation, and I have noted that there may be opportunities for us to pause and then put out for questions along the way.
All right. Well, thank you, Madam Mayor, Madam Warden. I will now share my screen if that's all right. And
yes, please.
Thank you. And I will, if I can get my presentation up, I believe it is this one. It looks like it is up on the screen now. Strong Mayor Powers, Madam Warden?
Yes, we can see it. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Madam Warden, just to let you and everyone else who is in this meeting know about this, I plan to be about 45 minutes with the presentation proper. I won't be paying attention to what hands are raised. So if I could ask, if you could monitor that, I'm happy to take questions throughout. However, in the interest of time, perhaps I can give you an indication when I finished a certain particular portion, and perhaps then you could convey the questions or ask persons to ask me, if that's all right, Madam Ward.
Yes, actually, I think what would be the easiest and the least distracting for you as you're doing the presentation is if you could, how many pauses do you anticipate? What will be the natural breaks in the 45-minute presentation?
Well, I was really going to say 2, but I could probably work in a couple. If 2 is all right, I was going to just very quickly, Madam Warren, I was going to do a general quick introduction, talk to you about the current system here in Ontario, talk about some of the underlying policy reasons for what is being proposed, some counter points to that, and then I would actually start in on what are strong mayor powers at that point. So I could do that. I could probably segment the second part into another part. So if you'd like 3 breaks, it's not a problem.
Right. Okay. Well, I would think that perhaps to keep the questions fresh and most relevant to the particular portion, why don't you opt for the three breaks? And I'll just ask any council members attending, if you could please make a note of the slide. If there's a particular item that you wish to ask, it would be helpful to Mr. Mascarin if you can refer back to the slide number just for clarity. And I'm going to ask that nobody raises their hands preemptively until Mr. Mascarin gets to his first pause, and then he'll say, okay, at this point, can I take questions? Then we'll ask for the hands to be raised virtually, and then we'll be able to address everybody's questions. But then that way it won't be, the hands won't be going up and down during the actual presentation portion. So if you can withhold hands, but just make a note if you have a question, and then when Mr. Mascarin gets to his first pause, then I'll put the call out for any virtual hands to go up for questions. Okay, so with that, Mr. Mascarin, please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Warden. So, strong mayor powers, my quick introduction. This was conceived many years ago in an actual book that was written by the premier with his brother, published by an actual reputable publisher in 2016. Doug Ford said this: if I ever get to the provincial level of politics, municipal affairs is the first thing I would want to change. I think mayors across the province deserve stronger powers, one person in charge with veto power. Now, we all know where this comes from. His father's company, Deco Labels and Tags, has business in Chicago. Chicago is well-known, strong mayor municipality. If you can go back to the early 1960s, didn't the mayor of Chicago steal the election for John F. Kennedy? So we can go back to that about strong mayor powers. Premier Ford has touted this for many years. I think he saw the experiences of his brother, who was seen as a maverick in the city of Toronto and was, in many cases, stymied by the city of Toronto because, well, I will get to that. So here is the reason for, or the purported reason for the strong mayor powers. The report of the Ontario Housing Affordability Task Force, a blue ribbon task force report. First line in the introduction, Ontario's in a high housing crisis. And what was pointed at? What were the fingers pointed to? Well, municipalities are the problem. Development restrictions, OP designations, zoning bylaws, other development restrictions, development charges, fees and user fees, Section 37 arrangements, all things that, again, were primarily controlled by municipalities as, again, putting restrictions, limitations on what could be built. And then finally, the die was cast, well, building permit delays. Building departments are just not moving quick enough to get housing built. Not recognizing that all of these things are, of course, provincial delegated powers, assignments, responsibilities that have been given back to municipalities. All things that the province can actually cure. So what came out of this? Recommendation number one, a goal of the province to build 1.5 million new homes by December 31st, 2031. Okay, so let's just switch for a moment. The traditional local democratic government model in Ontario for over 200 years, even before it was Ontario, and throughout all of Canada. What is it? It is a weak mayor system. The historical system of local government throughout all of Canada has been what's termed a weak mayor system. What does that mean? Well, the head of council is the ostensible leader, but the head of council of a municipality is a leader among equals, only has a single vote at council, and has very limited unilateral executive authority. This was made absolutely clear, and I know I've appeared in front of several of the local councils to talk about roles and responsibilities. The Collingwood Judicial Inquiry back from a couple of years ago, Justice Morocco very clearly said no member of council has unilateral executive powers, including the mayor. That's not absolutely clear. Of course, the mayor can expel persons who are being unruly from a council meeting without asking the council. The mayor is the spokesperson. The mayor is the person who's in charge of the emergency plan and has given certain powers under the Emergency Management and Civil Protection Act. But those are probably on a list of, what, 5, right? Those are very limited powers. Typically, the mayor has no stronger powers than that. I wrote in a paper when this legislation was first proposed, and you can see where my leanings go to, and I'll try not to imbue the discussion today too much with my op-ed, but the title was Strong Mayor, Weak Plan. The role of the mayor has traditionally been viewed as a consensus builder, one where the head of council must work together in a spirit of cooperation and compromise with the other elected representatives of the municipality to achieve a desired result, right? Majority rules. That's how the local government system has worked. It's enshrined in the Municipal Act. The powers of a municipality in Section 5, Sub 1, are to be exercised by its council. And how is council supposed to do this? Well, typically by bylaw, or unless the municipality is specifically authorized to do otherwise. And there's a number of instances in the Municipal Act where a municipality can just give an approval, pass a resolution, give direction enclosed. Those are things that are specifically authorized to do otherwise by a municipality apart from a bylaw. Otherwise, you have to have a bylaw and you have to have council do it unless the legislation itself says otherwise. So the logic underlying this legislation is this: strong mayors equals more housing. That's its basic construct at its base level foundation. And I say, really? Is this true? Well, AMCTO on April the 9th, when the announcement was made for the possible conveyance of the strong mayor powers to 169 municipalities, additional municipalities, AMCTO put out their position, which has been made absolutely clear. Mr. Abrams is a member of AMCTO. I am an associate member. This position's been very clear. While the government continues to justify the expansion of strong mayor powers as a tool to build housing, there is no evidence to suggest this legislation has any impact on the number of housing starts in municipalities that have been granted the powers. Alternatively, our research, and there's a link there to a one-page snapshot, indicates that strong mayor powers have blurred the political administrative authority between the roles of head of council and chief administrative officers, threatening the neutrality of the public service and polarizing local government leadership. Again, if you've read the Collingwood Judicial Inquiry, must reading for any local elected representative, it was very, very clear that municipal staff is there not to give partisan, politically engendered advice. The role of staff, and particularly CAOs, is to give neutral, impartial, objective, wise advice for the municipality to act in the best interest of the public. Staff are not supposed to be there to serve the council as the wind blows and make recommendations based on that. Staff is there to look at long-term goals, health, safety, well-being of the public, and to give neutral, impartial, objective advice to the council, the head of council, so the municipality can function appropriately. This has now, in my opinion, in AMCTO's opinion, and in many other industries, groups, AMO, OMA, have all said this is not the way to do it. So, Madam Ward, that's my first break, but I really don't think there's going to be a lot of questions at this point, but I will take a short pause here.
Sorry, Madam Warden, I believe you're on mute.
Thank you. We're all going to do that today, I think. So thank you very much. So that is the first introductory section. So we will take questions that are specific to these slides. And Mr. Mascarin, if a question is asked that is actually something that's going to be coming up in another slide, then please just indicate that, and then we'll put that question on hold until you've introduced the general material that would be specific to that particular question. And remembering, of course, that we are here for training purposes. So it's an opportunity to ask for questions, for clarification. We are not debating this. We're not providing comments about what we think about all of this. We are simply just asking questions based on the expertise that we have in the room with Mr. Mascarin as well as Mr. Abrams. So with that, I'm going to go to the top of my list, which would be a question from City of Owen Sound.
Thank you. Through you, Warden, we have Councillor Farmer.
Okay, please proceed.
Thank you. Through the Warden to the Clerk and Mr. Mascarin, would it be possible to have a copy of the paper he authored as referenced sent to participating councils and councillors after the meeting?
Okay, I'll put that question. Mr. Mascarin?
I had been asked this question through you, Madam Warden, to Councillor Farmer. I had been asked this question. I'm pleased to provide a copy. It is not to be distributed, and it is not going to be made available generally in its form, except through, I guess, the live streaming. Otherwise, but yes, each member who's here, and maybe any member who's not, can be provided with a copy of the slide deck.
Okay, and the clerk and her network of the clerks of municipalities can assist with that distribution. And I assume that's it from Owen Sound, so I'll go to Alex Maxwell of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Warden. The question I have is in reference to the Chicago model the US Chicago model for strong mayors. I'm just wondering about the checks and balances that were put in place at that level as opposed to ours for the strong mayors. Thank you.
So, Madam Warren, I'll try to answer it this way. I'm not an expert in the strong mayor powers in the U.S. I understand that the powers are, in general, a bit wider and broader than they are proposed here in Ontario, but that is probably still to be determined because you'll hear from me in just a minute about some things that I've heard from some municipalities as to the broadness of the application and scope of the strong mayor powers.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to Dane Nielsen of Grey Highlands.
Thank you very much, Warden. Just a question in terms of your opinion on the civility of the council table. So the only reason to utilize the strong mayor powers is to overrule a majority of council to make a decision as mayor, that veto power. Just wondering if you have a comment on, you mentioned the democracy in the first section, how that would fracture a council from a mayor overriding the majority of council.
Yes, through you, Madam Warden. I think I will comment on this as I'm going along, but it's more than just a veto power, Councillor Nielsen. It is also a power to actually advance in some instances, provincial priorities only at the instance of the mayor with 1/3 of council. So in one sense, we don't have majority rules anymore, which is the way it's been for over 200 years in Ontario and every other jurisdiction. I know you've asked your question about civility, and I'll attempt to answer that as I'm going along. And if I don't capture it quite correctly, then please, I'll try to follow up afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Not seeing any further hands. Mr. Mascarin, please proceed with the next portion.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Now I'm going to talk about the actual strong mayor powers. And here is the sources of the power. You have 2 statutes and you have 2 regulations. They, in a sense, all have to be looked at together. Unbeknownst to anyone, when the last election was held, not the current one, that the provincial government, the Conservative government received its 3rd majority, when it received its 2nd majority government mandate in June of 2022, there was no reference at all to strong mayor powers during the election campaign. However, as soon as the government convened at Queen's Park, Bill 3 was introduced. I believe it was a couple of days after the session began. And the proposal was the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act 2022, which added an entirely new standalone provision in the Municipal Act entitled, as I've put there, Special Powers and Duties of a Head of Council, which was put in place in the Municipal Act as well as CODA. CODA is the City of Toronto Act. And I'll speak about how it was just those 2 acts. Then a little while later, I believe the provincial government I think we forgot something and decided to propose Bill 39, which is the ironically titled Better Municipal Governance Act, to add 1 new section, but it's of significance in section 284.11.1 of the Municipal Act. Now, concomitant with that, with those pieces, those statutes, are 2 regulations. The first one is OREG 53022, and that is the regulation that actually lists in section 1 all of the municipalities that have been designated as strong mayor municipalities by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, who is given the authority under section 284.2 to designate municipalities. It isn't the Premier, it isn't the provincial government, it's the Minister Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing that does that. The regulation also puts in a number of procedural rules for the use of strong mayor powers. And I'll just say, I am not going to weigh into the minutia of those actual rules. Those are things that clerks will likely have to grapple with, perhaps with a call to me, but I'm not going to be going into that granular level of detail today, except on a couple of points to highlight things. And then there's a second regulation, and this is the key one, I think, or partly the key one, where certain strong mayor powers may only be able to be used for provincial priorities. And there are prescribed priorities for housing and infrastructure related to housing set out in that regulation. That's the only thing. There's only one section in that regulation that sets out provincial priorities, and that's because one aspect of the types of powers that mayors or heads of council have been given are to deal with provincial priorities. They were initially given in Bill 3 only to the cities of Toronto and Ottawa. They were described by both the Premier and the former Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Steve Clark, as a pilot project. They were given to Toronto and Ottawa ostensibly because that is where housing was desperately needed and where shovels could be ready to go into the ground. That was the idea. Mayor Watson in the city of Ottawa said, I don't even want them. Mayor Tory, former Mayor Tory in Toronto, did want them. And I think some evidence has come out that he had been lobbying quietly the Premier to get those powers. Then on June 16th, 2023, 27 additional municipalities were designated to have strong mayor powers as of Canada Day in 2023. Then there was an effort by the Minister of Municipal Affairs to get a number of other municipalities on board. I stand to be corrected on the number, but I believe there was either 22 or 21 municipalities that were proposed to be designated as strong mayor municipalities under the regulation if the head of council of those municipalities, without strong mayor powers, but if the head of council on their own would go ahead and execute a commitment in writing to meet the provincial housing construction targets by a certain date. If those heads of council wrote that letter and made that commitment, those heads of council were granted the powers of strong mayors under Part 6.1 as of October 31st. You'll see that of the 22 or 21, only 18 came forward. There were three or four mayors who did not sign the housing commitment and were not granted strong mayor powers. And then you have the fourth tranche coming forward, unbeknownst to, I think, just about everybody, even though I have talked to a couple of mayors who have been put on the list of 169 municipalities. And let's just say that they seem to have known that this was coming, maybe not exactly when, but with no prior notice. Many municipalities were quite surprised that all of a sudden they were put on a list that they may be assigned strong mayor powers by being designated under 284.2 of the Municipal Act. What I understand the province did is went through the list of municipalities, the 144 municipalities, excluded the first 47 that were listed, and said, okay, let's look at single and lower tier municipalities. I must tell you something about regional county governments. Let's look at those municipalities that have 6 or more members. And why don't we provide that those are proposed to be strong mayor municipalities? And you'll see I just pulled some quotes from the Backgrounder, the news release that the province had released. And there were three mayors, I think, of municipalities touting the real benefits of having strong mayor powers, and those were listed and quoted, just like forewords to a new, fantastic published novel. There are 4 types of powers that have been granted under this legislation. The first three are the ones that I'm going to speak significantly about. I will capture everything else in miscellaneous. Some of those are powers, some of those are responsibilities, some of those are directions, and I'll do it that way. So, Madam Mayor, I will speak about, Madam Warden, I will speak about administrative powers first, and then I'll take a break, and then I will go to provincial priority powers and budget powers. So, administrative powers. This is, again, if you read the Collingwood Judicial Inquiry, Justice Morocco was absolutely clear. No member of council, including the mayor, could give specific direction to staff to carry out certain orders, interest, desires, wishes of any member of council. This has been changed. The authority to direct employees to undertake research and implement decisions and provide advice directly to the head of council and to the municipality is now provided to the mayor. Now, if some of that language looks familiar, you will see that if you look at the council authority under the Municipal Act, that language is there for council to direct staff. Now, the head of council can do so, but it's not necessarily as broad as the public or that some councils think it is. The head of council may only exercise the authority to give directions to staff for the purposes of the powers or responsibilities under Part 6.1 of the Municipal Act. This will extend to the exercise of general control and management of the affairs of the municipality and to advancing or not interfering with provincial priorities. And I will speak about those specific powers. One of the requirements in both the statute and then under the regulation is all directions that are given under this authority here for the head of council to staff have to be made in writing. It can't be oral or verbal instructions. It has to be in writing, and the clerks will have responsibility for distributing this so that the rest of council is aware of what's happening. The second power, and you probably have heard this quite a bit when the powers were first granted, that the mayor now, or the head of council, will have the authority to hire and terminate, as well as appoint and revoke the appointment of the municipality's chief administrative officer. This is an incredible sea change, very, very significant, and you've seen it happen when the first and second tranches of powers were granted to those municipalities. You immediately saw some changes with the city managers, CAOs of those municipalities, because all of a sudden the head of council was given the powers, did not have to ask anyone, and could go directly and terminate a CAO and decide, by bypassing any hiring policies or any other requirements, to appoint who they believed was appropriate. You've recently probably heard it significantly being in the media. The mayor of Orillia took an incredible step, which was to be considered the other day, and I understand that the meeting did actually not quite go ahead, where the mayor of Orillia was given the strong mayor powers only for a temporary period, but for ahead of this advancement of powers to the proposed 169 municipalities. And the mayor took it upon himself with the grant of power, which the media seems to be indicating was to deal with the state of emergency. And so just let me go back one more time. The purpose of strong mayor powers is to deal with building more housing. That's the purpose for which it's been stated and for which these powers are supposed to have been granted. And yet what the mayor did there is decided to terminate, or not allow the new CAO, whom he had just issued a media release congratulating him for joining the municipality before he was to join the municipality, and indicated he's no longer coming to the city of Orillia, and someone else was being put in place as the CAO. That has engendered a lot of debate in the city of Orillia, and let me tell you, much beyond that, because I got a number of calls from mayors asking, can he actually do that? Because it looked like he was granted the powers because of a state of emergency. So I guess that's what's going to be continued to be debated. This is a huge change, and you can see that the precarious position that many CAOs are already under has become even more tenuous now with this. And, you know, my comment on it, my op-ed here is, it's difficult enough to find really great qualified people. And now I think many CEOs are going to be thinking about, well, do I really want to do this? Or what kind of contract do I have to protect my interests, because I could be let go on a whim? Okay, so that's the CAO powers under Section 284.5. There are additional powers dealing with, in Section 284.7 and .8, dealing with prescribed local boards and prescribed committees. With prescribed local boards and prescribed committees, the head of council can establish and dissolve them. The head of council can appoint chairs and vice chairs to be on those committees and local boards, and can create them and assign functions to those. However, here's the key. It says prescribed local boards, and there are none. So it's an empty shell of a power. However, because it's prescribed, the minister can go and prescribe local boards. So for the moment, nothing has changed. You cannot go and make changes to public library boards, boards of health, the police service boards, and any other local boards that a municipality may have. It then also applies to prescribed committees. Prescribed committees is a defined term under Section 4 of LReg 530/22, and it applies only to committees comprised of all members of council. So the authority with local boards and committees is not nearly as broad as many members and the public thinks it is. There are no prescribed local boards, and prescribed committees means only committees comprised of all members of council. Finally, dealing with administrative powers is the authority of the head of council to determine the organizational structure of the municipality. So the head of council can look at the organizational structure and say things like, I don't like that bylaw enforcement reports to or is under this, and I don't like legislative services being here, or someone reporting to the director of HR, and I would like to switch that. That is now within the authority of the head of council. More controversial, I have found, apart from the determination of the organizational structure, which some heads of council have undertaken, is the power to hire and terminate the employment of what is termed division heads, or the head of any division of the municipality. I've put here, for your purposes, department heads, because they're often described as that. People have asked me, what does this actually mean? The heads of divisions. And I said, I cannot give the answer unless I look at the organizational structure of your particular municipality, because they're all different, and division heads in your municipality may mean something entirely different than a division head in another municipality. So the head of council can come in and say, I'm going to now replace this person who is a department division head. I'm now going to replace them with this person. So that is the authority. The authority, however, is restricted And it doesn't include any division head who is a statutory officer. And I've listed just a few of them there. There's a list of, I think, 12 or 13. And any person who is required to be appointed to their office under the Municipal Act or any other act. So I'll give you one example. Building inspectors are appointed officials under Section 3, Sub 2 of the Building Code Act. So they would be safe. The head of council has no authority to impact their employment law status of these persons. The organizational structure that exists remains in place unless it's changed by the head of council, and all employment law vested rights, benefits that an employee who is a department head, and of course the CAO, who may be terminated without cause, because there is no requirement for cause, all of that remains in place. And if a person is terminated by the head of council, then that person can claim the ability to seek severance and notice and matters like that. I have been asked whether this impacts any issues dealing with the authority of certain persons, and could there be, for instance, constructive dismissal of a CAO by virtue of the fact that that CAO may no longer have the authority to hire and fire department heads, which may have been granted by the appointment bylaw to the CAO, by the employment contract, or by the bylaw that created the office of the CAO. And my answer is, thus far, I do not believe that that would constitute any kind of constructive dismissal. I've also been asked, and this is probably for maybe municipalities that are somewhat smaller, sometimes you have a head of the administration, which is a CAO / clerk, a CAO / treasurer. I think the employment of those persons may have been saved because part of their appointment would have been as a hybrid function, i.e. CAO / clerk or CAO / treasurer. My view is, and it stands to be corrected by the courts, is that that hybrid function might serve to save the CAO's employment and authority of the CEO to dismiss them. Madam Warden, I finished the part on administrative powers, and I'll take a break now and ask if there's any questions.
Thank you. So I'm going to ask everyone to take a moment to raise their virtual hands if they have questions. And again, if there's something specific, please refer to the slide number, and we will then make sure that everybody has had a chance to ask questions thus far on the material presented. We're going to begin with Brian Milne from Southgate.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and thank you, Mr. Mascarin, for your presentation thus far. My question, actually I have two, but they're fairly, I think, succinct. In your opinion, is there any significance to the 6 or more councillors? You know, why 6 or more councillors getting these powers, as opposed to, for instance, in Grey County here, we 8 of the 9 received their powers. Why not all 9? And the other is, you mentioned it just at the end there, the hybrid position, CAO / clerk / treasurer, might save the position. Do you see any indication that mayors that get these strong powers are going to start swinging a dead cat and everybody's going to be fired and we're going to have, you know, huge turnover? Do you see any indication of that happening?
Yeah.
I don't.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Through you, Madam Warden. The first question, why 6 or more? I think the province just went through, wanted to extend the powers significantly, and thought that was the way to do it. I don't think there's any more thinking that was done through that, because I've been contacted by many municipalities and asking, why was my municipality included here? We don't even have any development potential, any real development potential. Why would we be granted this? It was because they had six or more. Now, Councillor Millen, your question is fascinating. Your second question, and let me answer this. I have seen this happen, and it's happened in many municipalities where you see immediately a mayor coming in and saying, okay, CAO is gone, the city solicitor is gone, the treasurer, not the treasurer, director of planning is gone, the director of communications. I have seen it. It's been focused on certain municipalities, and I wouldn't want you to think that I'm saying, oh yeah, it's happening across the board everywhere, but it has happened to a significant degree that to me, raises some real concern about it. So I have seen some significant changes occurring in certain municipalities.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. We'll next go to a question from Barbara Dobreen of Southgate.
Thank you, Warden Matrosovs, and good morning, Mr. Mascarin. The question is slightly twofold. You partially answered one of the question in your presentation. The first question is, what evidence exists that the municipalities that have previously been granted strong mayor powers have actually advanced housing? And my second, go ahead, sorry.
No, if I can answer, because I'll forget the question. There has been some instances. Bonnie Crombie, before she left to become the leader of the Liberal Party in Ontario, had vetoed a decision that council had made. I stand to be corrected. Perhaps she didn't veto, perhaps she advanced. I know that Andrea Horvath in Hamilton has used strong mayor powers to declare surplus certain municipal parking lots in order to potentially open them up for affordable housing. I know the mayor of Ajax has vetoed or put forward a different development charge bylaw with lower rates in order to advance. So it has happened. My thought is it has happened, maybe not nearly as broadly as the province would like to tout it, but it has happened in a number of instances. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I've given you 3 examples of which I've had some insider familiarity with, they've been controversial.
Thank you. And if I may, Warden Matrosovs, my second question is, you touched on the constructive dismissal not really applying to the CAO, but in the instance where a strong mayor can then reorganize a corporation, a municipality's organizational structure, and reassign senior managers or the CAO, could that change in responsibility be considered constructive dismissal?
Through you, Madam Warden, that's a fascinating question. And I have given a little bit of thought. My thought was this: I better consult with one of my employment lawyers to make sure that I'm right. So I will respectfully, it's a great question that I will decline at this time to really venture into, because I really don't know the answer.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to Kevin Eccles of West Grey.
Thank you very much, Madam Warden, and through you to John. I think it's on page 19, where you said that believe it's local boards, prescribed local boards. None are prescribed, but you did indicate, if I caught that correctly, it'll be up to the Minister of Municipal Affairs to add that in forthcoming.
Yes. Yes, Mayor Eccles, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes, yeah, just quickly. When the word prescribed is used, it means it's in a regulation. So it doesn't have to be in the statute. The Minister of Municipal Affairs has authority to make changes and, for instance, add in a new provision in the regulation where the minister could prescribe certain local boards and could change the definition of prescribed committees as well.
So that's to be announced, I guess, then somewhere down the road. And you said it was library boards, police services boards, those types of local boards that are autonomous, really autonomous to the municipality.
Yes, if I could, Madam Warden, just to Mayor Eccles, just to be absolutely clear, I mentioned the well-known local boards. Those are local boards. There's, of course, many others, and there's been a decision, or at least 2 other decisions from the courts that have seemed to expand the definition of what a local board is. There was one under the Municipal Affairs Act, and there was one which Mr. Abrams was actually involved with in the City of Hamilton, which is expanded what maybe was thought of as being a more tight definition of what a local board is. It's been determined to be pretty broad.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do have a number of hands, so I do want to make sure we keep moving down the list here. So next we're going to go to a question from Paula Hope of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. First a clarification and then a question. Continuing with slide 19, and from the questions that my colleagues have been asking, basically a strong mayor would have the authority to terminate the employment of a CAO, but that would not prevent the CAO from pursuing a wrongful dismissal. I've heard other people say constructive dismissal. In other words, the courts would still would still have to be checked, I guess, as to whether the CAO in question would be compensated.
So through you, Madam Warden, to Councillor Hope, I'm going to try, again, I'm not an employment lawyer, but let me try to answer the question. The authority for the mayor to go in and terminate the CAO without cause is there. It's statutory. The mayor can do that. If the person is terminated and there is no cause alleged, then yes, the person has all vested rights that they've, let's say it's a 25-year employee who has received superlative performance evaluations from council, and maybe not the mayor. Yes, that would possibly permit that person to seek compensation for that. Now, there is a provision, and I'm going to show it to you just a little bit later. All decisions have some immunity protection, but they have to be exercised in good faith. So the question may become, and your question, Councillor Hope, is fascinating. What if the mayor does it maliciously or does it in bad faith? Could that engender a possibility of the person claiming additional damages, not just severance and notice? My off the top, because I'm not an employment lawyer, is yes, it might if they've acted in bad faith.
Okay, so the taxpayers would be on the hook if that. So my second quick question, Madam Warden, is could council at least send a signal to staff by reinforcing through votes the hiring or the securing of the contracts of staff? So reaffirming its support of the CAO, of all of the different roles or different positions, staff positions that might be vulnerable to a strong mayor situation. Would there be any merit in a council taking that kind of lead? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, Madam Chair. Yes, I think there might be some benefit there. Council showing its support for certain persons. It might have some impact. I couldn't say it wouldn't. So that's an interesting question, Councillor Hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your help.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll go to a question from the City of Owen Sound.
Your Warden, Councillor Farmer.
Through the Warden and Chair, the Premier's announcements about this have suggested that there will be both additional oversight or accountability, but that accountability, as I've seen it described, is mostly through elections every 4 years. I'm curious whether Mr. Mascaron knows if there is any person or body who's in a position to challenge the justification of actions aligning with a provincial priority. To me, those seem amorphous, and I'm wondering if there's been any example or if there's a mechanism in the new legislation that would let us say, wait a minute, that's not really a provincial priority.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Farmer, through you, Madam Warden. That is to be determined. These powers have been, in certain municipalities, been in place for now a couple of years. And there's been no court challenges that I'm aware, or at least no decisions that I'm aware. I think a lot of this will be determined by the courts. For instance, and I don't mean to keep picking on the city of Orillia, but I know that a number of the council members there are very upset about what has happened, and you can see a challenge that perhaps the council may make, saying the mayor had no authority to do what he did. It was either illegal, or it was done in bad faith, or it was so wholly unreasonable as to not stand the test of scrutiny, notwithstanding the immunity provisions. So yes, one of the questions is going to be, how broad are these powers going to be applied and interpreted going forward? Because as you said, I think Councillor Farmer, I think your word was that the powers, provincial priorities could be very amorphous, and I totally agree with you on that. Oh, sorry, just to add to that, you asked me if there's a mechanism. No, there's no inherent mechanism right now that is put in place to have a check or balance on whether the mayor is exercising these powers appropriately or not.
Okay, thank you. And we're going to carry on down the list of the questions for this particular section, because I do know that you do have several other sections, as you said, that we'll need to cover. And then we'll make sure that we circle back at the end in case there are any remaining questions in case something was missed or something that comes further provides another question to something earlier that was presented. So next we'll go to June Porter of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Muscarin this morning. I'm glad you mentioned just now about any court challenges, because it really begs the question, is this actually constitutional for what is this legislation? With respect to, and a very good example is what has happened in Orillia, and equally with the slide with number 20, I believe, which spoke to organizational changes. What training do the mayors who assume and accept these powers receive? Because I don't think there's any elected official or even anyone in the private or public sector that has the full skill set, knowledge, background, and competencies to be know what's involved in labor law, organizational design, effectiveness, and I know you haven't covered it, but budgeting, impacts. So what do they receive?
The simple answer, Madam Warden, to Councillor Porter, is they don't. When you become a member of council, you're elected, you don't have to have any qualifications other than the ones that are set out in the Municipal Act. You have to be 18, and you have to own land, or have some tie, be an elector. You have to swear an oath to the king now. I think there's one more. Otherwise, there are no other qualifications. You don't have to have a certain education. You don't have to have experience or any particular knowledge base. So there are no authorities. And this is what I think, again, my op-ed is dangerous with this legislation, and why I've spoken against it, even for municipalities that I act for that are strong mayor municipalities. I've often said, when someone is elected as a member of council, they become a generalist. And what do? You rely on your invested, professional, qualified staff who are impartial, politically neutral, and totally objective to give you advice. So certainly a strong mayor can go and get the advice that he or she needs from professional staff. But to answer your question, Councillor Porter, is there is nothing that has any specification of particular qualifications for the mayor to be able to do these things. And yet the authority is there.
Madam Mayor, may I have a quick follow-up, please?
Yes, we'll do a follow-up and then we'll proceed down the list of the hands that are raised.
Thank you. So, Mr. Mascarin, so just to confirm then, under the strong mayor powers, they can just do this by themselves, unlike you well-established processes, whether it's in the public or private sector. The dismissal of someone is a very thoughtful process that involves a consultation with other people, as with any organizational design, or even a creation of other things that may follow today. So I just want to confirm that they can just do this as a single person. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Warden, yes. The answer is unfortunately yes, and you have seen that. The question that I was asked early on when this was granted is, hold on, the mayor is going to terminate the CAO. Okay, the mayor can do that. But what about the hiring of the new CAO? We have a certain requirements. The person should have, as the new CAO, a certain level of experience, background, education. Can the mayor just override that? What about references? And my answer is, there is nothing that says that they have to follow those things. So unfortunately, I'm going to, I think, make the point for you, Councillor Porter, is, yeah, there's nothing there and it's really problematic.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move along then to Kathy Moore-Colburn of Georgian Bluffs.
Thank you, Madam Warden. My question is through you to our speaker in regards to housing targets. Many of the municipalities who have been granted or who will be granted these additional powers have no assigned housing targets. So if this is the rationale purported by the province to extend these strong mayor powers, how do you see that working logistically, and will we then be assigned housing targets to work towards?
Through you, Madam Warden, to Councillor Moore-Colburn, I believe the province will likely come in and assign certain housing targets. You may recall that when the powers were first granted, there was the Building Faster Fund. So if municipalities met certain targets, they would be able to get to certain funding. I'll be completely honest with you. I am ignorant as to where that stands, whether it's to be changed, because it was only, I mean, those targets kept moving from what I heard. So I believe the province will come in with something there to try to further encourage, but there's nothing right now that I'm aware of. And again, maybe I'm coming from a place of ignorance, but that's not what I was looking at.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'll look to Barbara Dobreen of Southgate. Did you have a follow-up to what you had previously asked?
Yes, Warden Matrosovs, it's actually feeding off of the previous question. The commenting period indicates that a council with 6 or more members and a projected population of 50,000 by the year 2031 would be granted strong mayor powers. If a municipality, such as Southgate, I mean, I haven't seen any projections that indicate we'll be 50,000 by 2031. Does that then not give us strong mayor power? Do they have to meet all of the criteria in order to be granted strong mayor power is my question. Thank you.
And that's a great question through you, Madam Warden. I didn't actually read it that way because yes, there's many municipalities there that are not going to be 50,000, and I didn't read it like that. And so I think any municipality that's on that list there that doesn't try to disclaim the powers or write to the minister and indicate don't put us on the list, I think will be put on the list.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to Shirley Keaveney of Meaford. Just make sure you unmute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you, Warden Matrosovs, and thank you, Mr. Mascarin, for your presentation. And perhaps you'll touch on this in the next section, but I'm just curious to know, councils very carefully with staff prepare our annual budgets. So any of these organizational changes that a strong mayor might implement will have huge budget implications. So does the strong mayor then have the ability to go to the treasurer and direct them to find funds that are needed for the hiring of the different individuals that they might choose to place in their municipalities?
The simple answer, through you, Madam Warden, is yes, and I will get to the budget powers in just a moment, but they've now become the mayor's budget, not the council's budget. But I will speak to that in just a moment.
Okay, so that will be coming later. And so therefore, the next on the list then will go to Alex Maxwell of Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, or sorry, Madam Warden, and to Mr. McLaren. Just under provincial priorities and under housing, I'm going to say housing and infrastructure, like DCs are being presented as one of the barriers to housing. And I'm just wondering if under the Strong Mayors Act, would the mayor be able to waive the DCs and shift the burden to the existing taxpayer? And I'm just wondering how this would be justified.
Councillor Maxwell, through you, Madam Warden, I was going to get to strong mayor powers. I put the slide up, which was the next one on provincial priorities, so everyone can see what they are. I know everyone knows what these are. The simple answer, Councillor Maxwell, is yes, I believe that the mayor could do exactly what you said. And in fact, if the development charges are reduced to zero, then there is what the act says is you cannot impose them on other developments or other classes of development. So therefore, it will have to be borne by the general tax base, and that is the consequence of it. So the simple answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. I would like to proceed then to the question from Gail Ardell of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Under Ontario Regulation 530-22, prescribed committees. So under the prescribed committees established under this act, that's consisting of members of council. So will this be committees of whole? And if that's the case, will we no longer have committees of the whole? That's my question. Sorry.
No, through you, Madam Warden, and hello, Councillor Ardell. Nice to see you again.
You too.
Yes. It right now it prescribed committees is defined. It's a defined term, and yes, for instance, a mayor could say we have a committee of the whole. It's all of council. It's a prescribed committee as defined, and I want to reestablish the rules of engagement for that. Set out new terms of reference. Can do that. Can assign the functions, or can even dissolve that and say no, we're not going to have that committee anymore. So that will be in place. It won't be in place for any committees that it's not comprised of just members of council.
Oh. Okay, well, thank you for your insight today and your knowledge. I think that you bring a wealth of knowledge, and I know I was against going in camera, but I think I have heard nothing here today that would stipulate going in camera. So thank you for this information.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't see any further hands, and I'm just going to ask Mr. Mascarin, I see you're at slide 20 now. I know there are approximately a dozen to go. How much more presentation time do you anticipate you'll need for the final sections?
Madam Warden, I've got probably, it's not so much how much time I'll take with the slides. I think maybe 20 minutes. It's more the answering of the questions. I appreciate you're on schedules. Everybody is. I had indicated to both the CAO and the clerk that I'm open this morning. I'm happy to stay as long as you need me, but I appreciate that you have time commitments. I will try to work through these quickly and maybe just see if I can get through it to answer the questions.
Okay, and we don't want to rush your presentation. I just wanted to get a heads up on how much further time. So we are at 10:45 and we did begin at 9. We are scheduled to go until 12. So at this point in time, I will call a 5-minute break, but it is going to be a 5-minute break. What I'm going to ask council members to do is if you're leaving, if you're exiting from the meeting for a break, please turn your cameras off, but turn them back on when you're back so that Clerk Warder can confirm that we have a quorum when we come back in 5 minutes. So with that then, if we can reconvene then at 10, I guess 10:51. Could you please be back at 10:51? Thank you. Okay, Madam Clerk, we are now at 10:51. It's been 5 minutes for the break. Could you please confirm that we have enough members to continue with quorum?
Yes, I can. I'm just verifying attendees. We have, I know, lost Councillor Townsend from West Grey. Monica Singh Soares has joined us in the meantime. Okay, thank you, Madam Warden. I can confirm that we do have quorum at this time.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So thank you very much, Mr. Mascarin. If you would like to continue with the next section.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And by the way, I would like to say that the questions have been excellent thus far, and I've been really engaged by trying to answer them. So I really want to thank the council members who have put forward the questions. So I'm going to now switch and talk about the provincial priority powers as I describe them. Here's the regulation. That's the extent of the regulation. As you can see, you have to build homes and anything related to homes, which is very, very broad, which relates to one of, I think, the questions that was asked earlier. So let's talk about what the provincial priority powers relate to. Well, meetings, as everyone knows, every municipality is required under the Municipal Act to pass a procedure bylaw. It governs the calling, the place, the public notice, and the proceedings of a meeting. There is now an override dealing with provincial priority powers where the head of council can require the council to consider a matter or to veto a bylaw that, in the head's opinion, potentially advances provincial priorities or potentially interferes with provincial priorities. And that power is notwithstanding any of the provisions in the municipality's procedure bylaw. So let me give you one example. Municipality, a mayor, strong mayor decides, I'd like to try to advance this zoning bylaw. No one's gotten notice of it. No one's gotten anything, but I'd like to try to advance this. That would be proper, or maybe not, that's not the right word, but it could be that the mayor, without notice to anyone, just decides the day of the meeting to give the clerk a copy of a bylaw that says, I'd like council to at least consider this. Now, that doesn't mean that the whole Planning Act requirements for the passage of a zoning bylaw have to be done away with. However, those remain in place, but the mayor could seek to advance the bylaw by bringing it forward without any prior knowledge. And that's one example. Let's say the mayor makes a determination that the municipality's noise bylaw may impede construction activity. And you can all, given that example because it's obvious, noise bylaws typically preclude sound emissions that are disruptive or beyond a certain decibel level during certain times of the day and also during particular days. The mayor could decide we need 24/7 construction occurring in the municipality and could bring potentially to a municipality, to the council, a bylaw to say, I'd like to get rid of those noise restrictions or time limits for them for the next 6 months or for the next year in order to allow construction to occur during any time of the day. I know I'm giving you a sort of a crazy example, but that's an example of the mayor being able to just bypass the requirements of the procedure bylaw. So I'm going to turn to 284.11, which is the veto power that relates to the mayor being able to veto any bylaw that the mayor believes will potentially interfere with the provincial priority. And so I've highlighted the word interferes. What is that? We don't know yet. What's potential? We don't know, but potential qualifies interference and I think makes it a lot more flexible. So the head of council may attempt to veto and can veto any bylaw that's under the Municipal Act, under the Planning Act, and under any legislation that has been prescribed. And thus far, only the Development Charges Act, Section 2, which is the development charge bylaw, has been prescribed. If the head of a strong mayor municipality believes that a bylaw that council has just passed, and we had the example, I think, from Councillor Farmer potentially, I think, of a development charge bylaw, it's too high. The residential charges are just too extensive, too high. The mayor can potentially veto that bylaw or a part of that bylaw. It doesn't have to veto the entire bylaw. There are certain requirements, and I told you I wouldn't weigh into the details, but I wanted to just make you aware of at least these details for the veto. Notice must be provided to the council within 2 days of the of the council voting for the bylaw. The veto has to be made in writing, and the mayor must provide written reasons for the veto within 14 days of the council meeting. So if you're going to think about the underlying basis for all this, you want to get housing built, and yet you have municipality passing bylaws, mayors being able to veto, and you also have the ability of a council to seek to override the mayor's veto by a 2/3 vote. So the council will require a 2/3 vote and for the vote to occur within 21 days of the mayor's veto. So it will all take some time. In case you're wondering, the mayor is entitled to vote on the veto that he or she has just put in place. So you're already, if you're a council seeking to overturn or override the mayor's veto, you're already under the 8 ball because you have to get 1, a 2/3 majority of council, and 2, the mayor is already voting against it, presumably. So that is the veto power. Again, mayor has the authority to do so if the mayor believes that the bylaw potentially interferes with a provincial priority. Here is the one section that was added, which I thought was incredibly controversial just because of its very nature. Despite any procedure bylaw, if the mayor is of the opinion that any bylaw, again, passed under the same statutes, under any bylaw under the Municipal Act, under the Planning Act, and a development charge bylaw, if the mayor believes that that bylaw may potentially advance a provincial priority, the mayor can propose the bylaw to the council and require council to vote on it. And the vote that the mayor has to achieve is only more than 1/3, not majority. It's more than 1/3. That is the language. The head of council is entitled to vote to pass the bylaw. Presumably a mayor that's advancing a bylaw will vote in favor of the bylaw. So then you need 1/3 of the council to vote. So it's 1/3 of council plus the mayor. You have more than 1/3 vote. Persons have asked me, does this include fractional numbers? And I have done the assessment with council that had, I believe, 15. Actually, I think it's 16 members. So we had to consider how 1/3 works in that case. But let's take a simpler situation, probably one that applies to a number of the councils here today. 7 members. What does more than 1/3 mean? Does that mean what is 1/3 of council of 7? It's 3. Plus the mayor, more than 1/3 is 4. So then you have actual majority. Does it actually work that way? My view, and I completely understand that you could argue that position. My view is you look at what is 1/3 of council and you get a fractional number out of 7. You get 2 1/3. Plus the mayor, 1, is 3 1/3. That's more than 1/3 of council, and I believe that is the actual way that it should be calculated. Again, I respect that there can be a counter argument that that's not the proper way to determine more than 1/3, but I've given a legal opinion to a municipality, and I believe I'll stand behind that legal opinion that you can have a fractional number, and then with the mayor added, it could bring it over more than 1/3. The veto power does not apply to bylaws under section 238, which is a procedure bylaw. 263, and I put that in brackets, that's the appointment bylaw. And then the budget bylaws under 289 and 290. So it doesn't apply to those. Madam Warden, I'm going to stop here because I think people might have questions about provincial priorities before I go on to budget.
Okay, thank you very much. So we will open it up for any questions. Please use your virtual hand and then I can address the questions in the order that they are seen. We'll begin with Barbara Dobreen from Southgate.
Thank you, Warden Matrosovs. Mr. Mascarin, the math is not adding up for me. I apologize. If a council is 6 members plus the mayor for 7, is the calculation of 1/3 vote based on the 6 members of council excluding the mayor? Because I note that it says that 1/3 of council plus the mayor. So 1/3 of 6 would be 2 plus the mayor would be 3.
Councillor Dobreen, through you, Madam Warden, that was just for illustrative purposes because that's not the language of the legislation. The legislation just says 1/3 of council. So I was trying to put in place that the mayor is always going to vote in favor because that's what he or she is advancing. So then I said, how do you calculate this? So I say you take 1/3 of council plus the mayor. That's how I've done it. But sometimes if you take 1/3 of council, you don't have whole votes. You have just fractions.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and I think what is important to note too is that as Clerk Warder has said, individual member municipalities will then produce their own report in the staff will the clerks with all of their knowledge and their and the resources that they can reach out can confirm for each and every municipality. What does it mean for us? How many members do we have on council? That's the intent of getting this as a broad introduction and without drilling too far down into the numbers here so that then the individual member municipalities can contemplate their own context. So with that, we'll go to Dane Nielsen of Grey Highlands.
Thank you very much, Warden. Just a question regarding maybe in conversations with maybe yourselves or AMCTO, and I know other entities are trying to work with the province to maybe perhaps be less vague with the legislation as is. The legislation you're just kind of showing was that the mayor's opinion. And so how does a mayor, it did say in the legislation, the mayor has to have like a written rationale within 14 days. How broad can that rationale be? And I think that's kind of the question when some of these powers is the vagueness to which the mayor is able to operate them. And then just as a kind of a opinion pieces, as the provincial government changes, the significant changes in provincial priorities could take place. And then how is a municipality trying to respond to perhaps the yo-yo of significant changes in provincial governments while the strong mayor powers are in place, telling municipalities to keep following those priorities?
Thank you, Councillor Nielsen, through you, Madam Warden. How broad are they? I think you're going to see many mayors, strong mayors, push the envelope, and that's still to be determined. As you know, under the Municipal Act, there are interpretive powers under Section 8, and those speak to the powers under the Act, not saying specifically about strong mayors, but powers under the Act are supposed to be interpreted and applied generally and and purposively. And the courts have supported that in the broader context of the old traditional system. And I guess it's still to be determined. So my answer to that, Councillor Nielsen, is I think they're supposed to be interpreted broadly. And I think the reason that they've been written in the way that they have is I think the provincial government is putting certain trust in the mayors that it is giving strong mayor powers to, that they'll be using it appropriately and that they'll be applying it for these provincial priorities that this particular government has put out. Now, whether there's a change in government and then a different government comes in and decides housing is not the first important thing that we need to consider, I'll just take an example, climate change. If those powers remain, then municipalities will then have to recalibrate where they're going with strong mayor powers, and may all of a sudden find a need to address climate change, for instance, or something different. So it really depends on the provincial government. So while these powers have been granted to mayors, they may be doing, many people have said, they're doing the job of what this particular provincial government wants to see done, and that could change with the change in government.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to continue then with Sean McKinley of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Warden. Just through you to Mr. Mascarin, I'm just wondering, since we're gathered here as a county of Grey, does this because I haven't been able to find this part really of this because it is so broad. Does this also apply to the county level of governance? Because single, because it doesn't say whether it's dedicated to single or lower tier municipalities. So I'm just wondering, or has that not been differentiated to regionalities?
Councilor McKinley, to you through the warden, the powers are granted to single tiers and lower tiers. They're not granted to the higher level of regional, county, district. I think I'm missing one, but of that level. So it's only given to mayors, not, for instance, wardens or chairs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And next we'll go to Alex Maxwell of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and to Mr. McCallum. The question I have, if the mayor is not advancing or perceived to be not advancing provincial priorities, can the province remove the mayor? Like, for example, under Utilities and Electricity Act? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Warden, to Councillor Maxwell, there's no authority here for the province to just come in and remove a mayor or any member of council. That's not proposed. Of course, the province has authority over municipalities, and I suppose it could put in some sort of removal provision. Saskatchewan actually has that kind of authority where an elected member of council can just be removed by the provincial government in that instance. And that has happened when there's been judicial inquiries that have found certain members have acted inappropriately. But there is no power right now. But Councillor Maxwell, I'm trying to drill down to the first part that you asked. I thought you were going to ask, what if a mayor doesn't exercise his or her powers to actually advance provincial priorities? And I thought that was going to be what you were going to ask. So just let me answer that question because I think it's a good one. These powers are there and they're discretionary. A council member, a mayor or a head of council does not have to exercise the powers. The member can say, I'm just not going to exercise my bylaw enactment power, nor my veto power, nor my power to override the procedure bylaw. I'm just going to let business go on as normal. And that would be the mayor's choice to do in those municipalities.
Thank you very much, and thank you for shifting that around for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Mascaron, if you'd like to do the concluding portion.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Warden. The budget power. I've said this before. It is now the mayor's budget. It's not council's budget. It says the head of council shall prepare the budget on or before February 1st. And there are certain rules. So just let me tell you what most municipalities are doing. Even though it's the mayor's budget, what I have found, and Burlington, the city of Burlington was the first one, and I've directed many of my treasurers, my municipalities, to go to Burlington and ask them. What the mayor did there is say, look, I know ultimately it's my budget, but I'm not going to develop it. I'm not going to go through it. I'd like it to be done in the way it's always been done. So going back to the original authority that I gave to you earlier, section 284.3, where the mayor can direct municipal staff, what I think the mayor did there is direct staff to bring forward the budget as the staff had traditionally done in the city of Burlington. I think there was a budget committee. The budget committee was continued to be established, and the staff went through and prepared the capital and operating budgets as it normally had done. And it was done way ahead of February the 1st. Then the mayor could look at the budget. The budget could come initially to the mayor, who would then bring it to council. Or I suppose it's possible that it could go to council first for comments and suggestions, and then it goes back to the mayor. Ultimately, the mayor brings it forward. You may recall a couple of years ago when John Tory announced that he was going to be resigning. He actually was put in a difficult position because I think he purported to resign on, I think it was February the 12th or 13th. And he wanted to resign, but he was supposed to bring forward the budget, and only he could bring forward the budget. And so if he couldn't actually submit his formal resignation, nor could council declare his seat vacant because he had to bring forward the budget. So the budget is ultimately the mayor's, and council can adopt the budget as is. And it could possibly do that if it has had input, or council can propose amendments. If council proposes amendments, then the head of council has the ability to veto the amendments, and the head of council may proceed to veto the budget by the council's amendments. The mayor may propose then to proceed, and council may veto the head of council's determination by a 2/3 vote. I know that's a little complicated. I may have even complicated it further by misstating it there, but the veto power also exists for the budget. It is the mayor's budget, but the mayor, even though she has no authority to delegate or assign the budget power, the mayor may give directions to staff to bring it forward in the normal course, and ultimately the mayor brings it to council. Council can propose amendments, and then those amendments may be subject to a veto by council by a 2/3 vote. So I'm just gonna proceed, Madam Mayor, in an interest of time. So I've talked about the budget. Someone may come and ask me about that. The mayor is able to delegate certain powers. Now, I just said to you that the mayor can't delegate the budget powers. And the reason I said that is because there are specific provisions in the act that allow for delegations. And typically how you interpret legislation when there's a specific authority to do something, then the provincial legislator has been deemed to have made a decision. Well, if it wanted to set out delegation powers, it set them out the way it intended to. So if they're not included, there's no authority. So that's why I said the mayor could not delegate certain powers under the budget or under other things. Here's where the mayor can delegate powers, can delegate to the chief administrative officer, the powers relating to the chief administrative office, only the council. can delegate the authority for the organizational structure to council or to the CAO, could delegate certain powers dealing with local boards, but none have been prescribed, so I'm not going to deal with it, and can delegate the powers dealing with committees back to council. And when you saw initially some municipalities receive strong mayor powers, you probably might have seen some media releases that said the mayor's given the powers back. Well, that's not quite true, because that would have been a little bit overstating it. What the media meant to say is the mayor delegated the powers that he or she was entitled to delegate, dealing with the hiring and firing of the chief administrative officer, the organizational structure, and the related employment law powers of for certain persons, and then for prescribed committees. Okay, so those are the delegation authority. There is an immunity, and I've said this before, and I'll just repeat it. Any decision that is made, or any veto power or other power that is exercised legally and in good faith, can't be open to being quashed. Now, if you look at the quashing provisions in the Municipal Act right now, 273, it says any person can come forward and seek to quash a municipal bylaw for illegality, which includes in bad faith. So this is just following that certain, the same sorts of provisions there. So there's an immunity as long as the mayor acts legally in good faith. And those are questions that are being asked. Can the mayor actually exercise that provincial priority power in the way the mayor actually did? One of the questions that I've been asked by a municipality to provide an opinion on is, does this include incidental or ancillary powers? So this is going back, if you know anything about municipalities and their history, there used to be, and I guess there still is, a rule of interpretation called Dillon's Rule, which was put forward in the 1870s by John Dillon, who was a judge and I think earlier a municipal lawyer in Maryland. And he had put forward Dillon's Rule, which the Ontario Court of Appeal accepted in Ottawa versus Ottawa Electric Light Company. Municipality can act for powers that have been expressly granted to the municipality that can be necessarily implied and as an adjunct to the express powers, or any powers that are indispensable to the municipality being able to act for its proper purposes and objectives. That's in a nutshell what Dillon's Rule is. And so I've had a municipality, at least one, reach out to me expressly to say, we'd like to get an opinion. Can the mayor, strong mayor, exercise provincial priority powers, and what are ancillary powers? Are those possible? Now, if you look at the Legislation Act indicates that any person that has been bestowed powers, those powers include all ancillary and accessory powers that go along with the main power. So this is a fascinating question, and I think it goes to a question that perhaps, and I'm sorry if I'm calling you out, but I think Councillor Nielsen may have asked earlier, is how broad are these provincial priority powers? And the answer is, they're probably broader than just reading what you see on the page, because it could possibly include ancillary or accessory powers that might be necessarily implied within those powers. Okay, I know I've said a lot, and probably a lot of it sounds like a lot of legalese, but this is something that your councils may be grappling with going forward, and your mayors will be grappling forward in trying to apply strong mayor powers. Now, people have also asked me, can someone other than the mayor, i.e. the deputy mayor or someone else at the municipality, if the mayor is absent, exercise strong mayor powers? The answer is no. That's my interpretation of the legislation, and I think it is buttressed by this one provision here, which says that a strong mayor can only be a person who has been elected to that office. And as you know, Section 263 says when there's a vacancy in an office of the municipality, and it doesn't distinguish between the head of council or the rest of council, it says that vacancy is subject to council having to make a decision in how to fill it. Does it fill it by running a by-election, or does it fill it by appointment? That has held true for also heads of council. It can't apply any longer to the head of council of a strong mayor municipality. Only a bylaw can a municipality can only pass a bylaw to hold a by-election. Therefore, this adds weight to the mayor. In a strong mayor municipality can only be elected. Now, if there's a strong mayor right now, and there is one, I gave advice to the city of Elliott Lake, their mayor lost their mayor shortly after the election. Their current mayor was appointed as mayor. I think that mayor is now grandfathered, and if that mayor receives strong mayor powers on May 1st, that mayor can continue on. But in the future, I don't believe that council won't be able to appoint a strong mayor, nor can the mayor delegate, assign, or it be assigned for him through, for instance, the procedure bylaw to have a deputy mayor. So only the strong mayor can exercise strong mayor powers. Mayor powers, whether it's a veto, it's a direction to staff, or if it's a bylaw, of course, has to be in writing, has to be in writing. And this is set out both in the legislation and in the regulation. And I won't speak fully about this. You're going to be dealing with this, and the clerks will. To date, in my view, most written records have taken the two forms. One is mayoral decisions and sometimes mayoral directions. Some municipalities have not actually divided the two, even though I think you can. And typically they take the form of what looks to me like an executive order. There's usually a title, there's usually a reference to what provision in the strong mayor powers in the Municipal Act are engaged. There is then sometimes whereas clauses to give some context for why the mayoral decision or direction is coming forward. And then there's typically some short provisions in there. I haven't seen too many mayoral decisions that go on for pages. I have seen a couple, but that's not the typical form that they take. So they have to be in writing. And finally, my last comment, Warden, is there is a provision that's been added to the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act to now recognize that mayors may be making decisions, and they have to be very careful if they're exercising their powers of decision when they have a pecuniary interest. And so I've just set out new sections of the new section of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act that is supposed to address strong mayors in municipalities. So, Madam Warden, I've come to my conclusion. Here's my very brief concluding remarks. Strong mayor powers are limited executive powers and authorities. The mayor in a strong mayor municipality can't just do anything. Mayors are given certain administrative, or in some other municipalities have termed them legislative powers. I've highlighted those for you. There are then the powers that are related to the prescribed provincial priorities, the ability to override the procedure bylaw by the mayor, seeking to bring forward a bylaw that advances a provincial priority. There is a veto power when the mayor makes, in his or her opinion, that there's a potential interference with provincial priorities. The mayor can seek to veto the power, with the council possibly able to override that. And then there is the minority enactment of a bylaw where the mayor believes that the bylaw could advance a provincial priority. You need to have more than 1/3 of council. Then there is the budget power, or some mayors have said to me, a responsibility. And finally, there are some what I call miscellaneous powers, duties, and authorities in the Act. So I'll stop there, Madam Warden. I'd be pleased to stay on. I know you have to end at noon, but I'm pleased to stay on and answer any questions. I will not. I'll leave it to you, Warden. Would you prefer that I leave my screen up in case someone directs me to a particular slide, or would you prefer that I stop sharing?
No, I think it's good if you want to perhaps just reverse back to your conclusion slide, just leave it there. And then, like you said, if somebody wants to ask a specific, we can quickly go back to the slide for that. And what I'll do is I'll just, in a moment, I'll just address each of these questions of the virtual hands that are up. But then I would also like to just give an opportunity to Mr. Abrams from Principals Integrity after we address these initial questions, if he has any other remarks. And of course, if council members may then, in response to the IC, may have questions that may pertain to that in conjunction to the presentation of the training material that you provided. So with that, we'll go first to a question from the City of Owen Sound.
Thank you, Warden. Councillor Farmer.
Thank you, through the Warden, to Mr. Mascarin. You mentioned in a previous section about I believe it was the second group of municipalities that were granted these powers after Ottawa and Toronto, that did come with the requirement to align with provincial housing targets. Some of them declined those powers. I'm wondering if they're declining those powers or saying, no, we don't want these, has persisted, as I think about how municipalities such as ours might protect ourselves from or try to opt out of these powers.
Yes, through you, Warden, to Councillor Farmer. It wasn't the second tranche. It was actually the third tranche where the municipalities had to actually, the head of council in those municipalities had to sign a commitment, and some didn't. I believe at least two of them are on the list here. I've forgotten what the third and potentially fourth ones were, but two of them are on the list. And in one case, one of the municipalities did reach out to me. The mayor felt earlier he couldn't commit to the targets because of a water supply issue, but appears now to be happy to sign on, and because there is no requirement for a commitment to the provincial priority. But your question, Councillor Farmer, is, as you probably noticed, the proposed granting, it takes place on May the 1st, and it was up on the ERO registry up until yesterday. I had been saying to municipalities, if you would like to disclaim or politely indicate to the minister that you don't want to accept these powers, you should have tried to do it by yesterday. Because certain machinery now takes place and there has to be things gazetted and filed and so on. I believe that some municipalities are still going to come forward with a resolution or a bylaw of council to indicate to the minister that they don't want it. I believe the minister will still look at those and may consider them. I believe my own personal view is that if the mayor agrees with that position of council and voted in favor of the resolution or bylaw, perhaps the minister would look very favorably. I believe if the request comes from council without the mayor supporting it, and the mayor actually potentially writing to the minister and saying, no, I do want them, I believe the minister will probably side with the strong mayor in that, or the purported strong mayor. That's my personal view about that.
Okay, thank you. So next we'll go to Dane Nielsen of Grey Highlands.
Thank you very much, Warden. A question from me is, the powers seem to be a lot when it comes to passing or vetoing bylaws. The mayor has the ability to have discussions with senior management staff and ask for materials and such. Do these powers allow mayor to present policy structure for a municipality, or have anything to do with set policies within the municipality range?
Great question, Councillor Nielsen. My answer is yes, if it deals with matters related to the organizational structure of the municipality, and two, if the policy somehow seeks to relate to provincial priority, I think, and I believe, I fully understand that there may be some skepticism in the room, but I believe there could be possibly a shoehorning in of policies related to that on the argument that it's part of provincial priorities. So my answer is yes, I think it is possible.
Okay, thank you. Next on the order of hands is Robert Urich of Meaford.
Thank you, Madam Warden. And you've touched on it very early in your presentation, I believe, where you talked about potential legal recourse if, for example, it becomes if it's a concern about a malicious act by a strong mayor. So I looked it up, and it says while the act doesn't explicitly mention arbitration, it does impact how disputes and disagreements are resolved with those municipalities. For example, the act allows mayors to bypass council votes on certain issues, which could create a situation where arbitration may be needed to resolve disagreements. Oddly, it goes on to say arbitration would involve a neutral third party making a binding decision, which could be used to resolve disagreements over specific policies or decisions. So my question is, do you foresee that the province will set up an actual arbitration board, or is it only going to be legal recourse that's going to be available to municipalities who want to contest a actual decision? Because if right now it seems to be up in the air what a neutral third party might be. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great question, Councillor Urich. My sense is I don't think the province wants to weigh in and do that and create some sort of oversight. I think my sense is the province wants to convey strong mayor powers and basically will say, I'll leave it up to the municipality or any persons, associations, groups who would like to challenge it to do it through the courts. That's my sense. I don't have any insider knowledge. I'm just skeptical that the province would want to weigh in and set up some sort of arbitration board for this.
Okay, thank you. And next we'll move on to Alex Maxwell of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Warden, and to Mr. McLaren. The question I have, if a municipality has a strong mayor, will this potentially increase greater access to provincial funding for housing? And if the mayor has waived DCs, the fact that we have a strong mayor, is there greater potential there for the province to make the municipality whole if you have a strong mayor in place? Thank you.
Warden, through you to Councillor Maxwell, I suppose it's possible. The province is looking to have more homes built, and it's trying to do it on the backs of municipalities, relying on the task force's finger pointing that municipalities are primarily responsible for the housing crisis, which I think many of you might say, we don't even really believe that. So is it possible? Yeah, I think what you were suggesting may be possible, but I don't often see the province coming back and making municipalities whole. I think sometimes it typically comes back and says, it's your bed. We've given you some powers, or we're giving you some authority. You figure out how to use it. And then when you often start using it the way it was intended to be used, the province comes back and says, oh, we're going to change the rules on you. So I'll give you an example. Development charges. The underlying basis for development charges is growth pays for growth. But then what do you have? You have a statute that keeps clawing back the ability of municipalities to actually put that basic underlying foundational principle in place. And does the province come back and make municipalities whole? I don't think it does.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Barbara Dobreen of Southgate.
Thank you, and through you, Warden. Thank you again, Mr. Mascarin. The flip side to Councillor Maxwell's question is there evidence that, well, we have the one side where strong mayor power could in fact receive more funding if they commit to a housing target. But those that aren't able to commit to the housing target and decline the strong mayor powers, is there evidence that they haven't been successful in getting funding in order to improve their infrastructure, water, wastewater, in order to then commit to a housing target? I know I'm not saying that very clearly, but I think you know where I'm going with this is the province holds all the cards.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Councillor Breen, you're asking great questions, and I'm sorry, I don't have an answer to that. I don't have that kind of information. I don't even want to really venture into answering it because I just really don't know. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Gail Ardell of the Blue Mountains.
Thank you, Madam Warden, and to John. With the conflict of interest, you did have a slide going back a little bit. Does that cover pecuniary interest as well? Oh, it does. Okay. It's strictly pecuniary interest. So conflict of interest, pecuniary interest. What mechanisms do council have if they believe that the mayor would have a pecuniary or a conflict of interest? That is why they had a judicial review in Collingwood. So I'm just wondering, how would we ever be able to have any powers around that mechanism?
Yes, thank you, Councillor O'Dell. Through you to Madam Warden. Now, your Integrity Commissioner Jeff Abrams is here, and I'll just venture in very lightly, but he's your Integrity Commissioner, yes. and well respected at that. So I'll just say, an application can be brought under the Municipal Act to your Integrity Commissioner to say, look, the mayor has a pecuniary interest. The mayor needs to comply with the Section 5.3, at the very minimum, 5.3 of the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. Now, Councillor Ardell, you also brought up, though, you've said pecuniary interest, and remember, the Act is very specific. It only deals with financial interest. There also could be, and as you noted, the Collingwood Judicial Inquiry, and earlier, the Mississauga Judicial Inquiry, which dealt with conflicts of interest in a much broader context. Mr. Abrams, in his code of conduct that he's put out, and mine in the ones that I've drafted, we will try to cover, we seek to cover conflicts of interest that aren't just pecuniary in nature, and that those were discussed in by Justice Cunningham and Justice Morocco, conflicts of interest that are personal or private, non-pecuniary. So those could be conflict of interest, code of conduct complaints. So those are the two mechanisms. And I'm sorry, I didn't want to steal your thunder, Jeff, but I'll if I could, and it's not up to me, but Warden, I'm going to stand down and perhaps Mr. Abrams will answer.
Yes, please.
Thank you, John. Excellent recitation of I think, the current situation with respect to the obligations of elected officials, whether they be stronger mayors or not. Certainly compliance is written into the statute, compliance with the statutory requirements. Most codes of conduct, whether they're explicit the way John and I now write them about the broader concept of conflicts of interest, most codes of conflicts have little code words. Apparent, in the spirit of the legislation, perceive conflicts of interest. And so, whereas greater clarity could be written into a code of conduct, there is an obligation to avoid conflicts of interest, whether they be pecuniary under the MCIA or broader. And so I don't think I have anything more to add to what John just said.
Okay, thank you. And next we'll go, okay, it's a follow-up question from Dane Nielsen from Grey Highlands.
Thank you very much again, Warden. So if the mayor delegates power to staff or council and then changes their mind down the road, how does the mayor go about getting the power back? Do they need to pass a further bylaw to require it back? And then further to that, if a mayor of this term delegates their authority to council and then the election happens, does that delegation of authority continue forward into the next term with a new mayor, if there is a new mayor, or does the new mayor kind of start fresh and have the ability to delegate or not delegate those powers?
Through you, Madam Warden, and thank you for your question. Two questions, Councillor Nielsen. The delegation powers that I've indicated on the page here, I'm sorry, I'll go back just to help. Delegation powers. Those, if you look at section 284.13, there's a subsection in subsection 2, and it says any delegation made under this provision is done in accordance with the rules under section 23.1 of the Municipal Act, and there are certain rules there. The first one speaks to what you were asking is, can the mayor delegate and then revoke? And the answer is absolutely yes. One of the rules says that if someone gives up a delegation, gives up a power and delegates it, that person still retains the power to revoke that delegation and take it back at any time. So that's the first question. The second one is the mayor's determination, the mayoral decision on a certain matter will go into the next term of council. And if it's the same mayor, it continues to apply, but the mayor can change it. But if it's a new mayor, the mayor sort of takes whatever is there, but can at any time change those by revoking the earlier mayoral decision and putting in place what he or she feels is appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Ross Kentner of Meaford.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Warden. Mr. Mascarin, do you have any long-term concerns for the functioning of municipalities as a result of this move? And specifically, I'm going to ask you, should councils debate whether they want a strong mayor or not? That's the first question.
Yeah. Thank you for the question, Warden, through you. I think council should debate this. I think this is really an important matter. And I think even though members of council could express to their mayor what they think is appropriate, I think a healthy, good, civil, professional debate, not focused on personalities, is something that's appropriate. I think your communities would like to hear what council thinks about it. Your own individual members of council. Here's my just quick take on it. You can probably tell I'm not a big fan of this legislation. I've never been. I think it's atrocious. I think council should have a healthy debate. I think if you do that, and maybe some councils don't want to receive it, they may have it foisted upon them. Once it's done, I think then the councils should attempt to not work against the head of council who has been given these authorities, should try to work with them. So I think it will have an impact, Councillor, going forward. I think what's going to happen next election is some members of council are probably feeling a little bit, why was I elected if I'm going to have a strong mayor who gets to make all of the really big, important decisions? You might see some of them deciding, you know what, I'd rather be the mayor because I want to do this. So I think you're going to have very, very hotly contested mayoralty races. But I think the downside to that, the counterpoint is, I think you might have less of an interest in persons being elected to council because they're going to be saying, well, what powers do I now have with a strong mayor? This unilateral executive centralized authority. So I think, my own personal view, it will have a long-term impact, not only on elected representation and where people may choose to run and for what reasons, but also for the administration who may not want to throw their hat into working for a municipality that's already, politically motivated and the decisions are politically influenced, and then, them saying, you know what? Maybe the public sector is the better place for me to go, where I can't just be removed because I don't get on long with one person. So I do think there's going to be impacts long term.
As if we didn't have enough problems. So can I just ask one more thing? Is there any reason why we cannot take some time, have some discussion, and reach a decision collectively on how to move forward? Or are we going to jeopardize? Is the province going to think we're not interested in more houses? Because we definitely are.
Well, I think the province did something what I call a little sneaky here. Maybe they shouldn't have given such a short time frame. I think that was intended. Many municipalities could just not mobilize. I mean, there was a number of municipalities in the province that were, if not under a state of emergency, had just come out of one. And I think it's hard for them to go ahead and get special meetings to make decisions to give then proper bylaws or resolutions to the province. And so I think that might have been intended. I'd hate to actually really think that it was prime motivation to do it that way, but I guess, municipalities can take a pause, but I think it's going to prejudice your ability to say something about this particular grant of strong mayor powers.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we're at 11:46, and I do want to allow for some time for Mr. Abrams to make any concluding comments if he so wishes. So Dane Nilsson of Grey Highlands, I'll just go to you if there was a brief follow-up.
Thank you, Warden. And I think my comment will tie greatly into the Integrity Commissioner's comments. With AMO and municipalities and mayors reaching out to the province to try to get stronger code of conduct measures regarding civility at the table, with AMO's work on healthy democracy and trying to bring civility back and encourage people to run for council. John, your comments recently just kind of echo to a counter to those arguments. We are going to have people who are going to see this as, why should I run for council if I don't have the authority to get done what I think I get done? And moreover, you can see members of our communities whose personalities are a strong running and campaigning in the next election on the concept and idea of utilizing these strong mayor powers to remove staff, to remove SMT, to remove senior management teams under the premise of we need change, while fully not understanding, because there's no regulations needed to have any kind of education or ability to govern the municipality or even understand the municipality, just that you are of age, live in the municipality, and then you are therefore qualified to run. And so it's not so much the implementation of the powers now as the elected officials that exist. My concern really stands into the next election cycle and the type of personalities we're going to have campaigning based upon the ability of these powers.
Okay, thank you. And I didn't hear a question from Mr. Mascaron on that one, so I am going to proceed on then. There are no hands of further questions, so I'm going to give the opportunity to Mr. Abrams in case he would like to make any concluding comments.
Thank you. I do appreciate that, Warden. And to the last discussion, should there be debate at council about these things? We as integrity commissioners believe that good governance is the key to solid integrity at council. And so to the extent there is interest, I fully believe that council should discuss these powers. We refer to them as stronger mayor powers, as Mr. Mascaron, pardon me, alluded to at the beginning of his presentation. The powers are not universal. They are focused. There may be an opportunity for stronger mayors to extend them a little bit, but they are focused on provincial priorities for the most part and some organizational structures. And so in the United States, the model for this, which we believe to be the model for this, there are actually mayors who are quite strongly come in with their own administrations after elections. And the observation there is in the United States, if you may be a fan of their electoral system or not, but it is based in parties. There's party discipline. There are primaries for these individuals, and we don't have that. So the mayors are stronger than typically would be the case. Although I'm wondering if anyone would allege that the late Hazel McCallion was not a strong mayor without having access to these powers. That's a little bit of commentary. I want to congratulate Mr. Mascaron for a very thorough presentation of the powers. And I didn't even see him sneak a drink of water as he did that. So good on you, Mr. Mascarin. I get questions from time to time about whether the code of conduct should be amended in order to speak to the exercise of stronger mayor powers. And I think the code generally will apply. That not a lot of modification need happen to it. I would, and I don't know that this is authorized, but I think it would be useful for our councils to contemplate whether a stronger mayor ought to, before the exercise of a power, at the very least, using some old planning language, have regard to the advice of staff, have regard to previous decisions on the subject. They can do what they can do, and they can, but I think the notion is that they should at least hear, but maybe not listen to the advice that council or staff might give them. And so, in addition to that, as Mr. Mascarin shared with you, these powers have to be exercised in writing, mayoral decision, other forms of decision making. They have to be documented, and they have to be accessible by yourselves if you're not a stronger mayor, and the public. And so, where I have seen some concern amongst our clientele are occasions where staff will actually accede to casual direction from a stronger mayor. They're going to do it. There'll be a little cajoling, some pressure, and they will do it. And I think it important, maybe this goes more to the staff code of conduct than the council code of conduct. I think it important that everybody recognize that these powers have to be exercised in writing with an explanation, some rationale for them indicated. And that may go some distance to constraining what otherwise might be a rogue, stronger mayor. So we are short of time. There may be questions. I'll just leave it at that, Warden. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. I'll just give a moment in case there are any hands up specifically for you, Mr. Abrams. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands go up, so thank you very much for that additional perspective. All right, so thank you. I don't see any further hands up on this education portion of our meeting. So, Madam Clerk, we have already spoken to the fact that it will be up to the clerks at the various member municipalities to proceed with a report that will outline specifically for each municipality what this means. And of course, we will be open to hearing further details and information from the province as we go. So, Madam Clerk, do you require a motion to receive at this point, or would you like me to carry on to the bylaws?
Proceeding on to the bylaw would be sufficient at this time. Thank you.
Okay, so with that, then the recommendation is that bylaw 2025-02 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of the Grey County Joint All Council meeting held April 17th, 2025 being acted and passed on this 17th day of April 2025. May I ask for a mover? Okay, thank you. It's moved by Tom Hutchinson of West Grey and seconded by Kevin Eccles of West Grey. It's on the floor. Any discussion? Okay, Madam Clerk, I'm seeing no hands, so therefore I will call the vote, and I will call the vote in the regular fashion for this. I will ask that any opposed raise their hand now. Okay. Not seeing any opposed, then Madam Clerk, I'll declare that passed. And with that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. May I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you. I've got it moved by Terry McKay of Chatsworth and seconded by Joan John of Southgate. Any discussion? Okay. And with that, then I will ask any opposed to adjourning. I'll just make, okay. Councillor Peter Whitten, I see your hand up. You're voting against adjourning? No, okay, thank you. Excellent, just making sure. Okay, just so the clerk can have her record. And I see no opposition to adjourning. So we are hereby adjourned. And again, as I said at the beginning, thank you very much, everyone, for adding this to your busy schedules. And I look forward to handing this over to the lower tiers so that they can proceed with the reports that will be more specific to each municipality. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Happy Easter.